Hey there, good afternoon, Belmont Bears. I am so sorry. It has been a busy couple of days for me and my family. There have been some family emergencies I've had to tend to, and for that reason, I haven't been able to post a chapter of Louisiana's Way Home yesterday or today. So, I'm going to read you 2 chapters this afternoon. I hope that you get to see this before the weekend, but I know you're dying to hear the next 2 chapters of what's going to happen, so I didn't want to hold that from you over spring break because I know we'll have to wait then too. So I know we left off on chapter 13 last time, and at the end of chapter 13, Louisiana and Burke are in the woods. Remember, he has gone and made her bologna sandwiches and sort of fed her, taking care of her, and now she's telling him the story of the curse, okay? And she's kind of just befriending him, right? And she kind of grows some ideas, a little bit more ideas about like who he is as a person, and says that he's the type of person that if you ask him for one of something, he always gives you 2. And remember the last time I asked you to sort of think about like what that would mean, you know? What does she mean by that? I think she means that he is a generous person. Like if I ask him for one of something, he's going to give me more than I ask for, so he's generous, you know? So I think that might mean that Burke Allen is a generous character, but I want to keep adding on to that as I'm reading and seeing if I can think of any more things that would describe him, okay? So I'm going to start on chapter 14, I'm going to read chapter 14 and chapter 15. Today's a bonus, okay? So here we go, chapter 14. Speaking of funny, when I walked into room 102 of the Goodnight Sleep Tight and said, "Granny, I have bought you 2 bologna sandwiches," Granny didn't say anything at all. I expected her to curse the very existence of bologna, or to tell me that she was not hungry, but Granny said nothing. "Granny?" I said. I went over to the bed. I pulled back the covers. Granny was not there. I have never been so surprised in my life. "Granny?" I said in a very loud voice. I looked in the bathroom. I looked under the bed. And then I ran out of room 102 and looked for the car. And guess what? It was gone. I went back into the room and saw that Granny's plaid suitcase was not on her luggage rack. I felt dizzy. The whole room was spinning. I couldn't breathe. Where would Granny go without me? I was the reason for her existence. She had told me so many times. She said that what kept her alive was looking out for me and teaching me to make the most of my gifts. I bent over and put my hands on my knees. I took deep breaths. I looked around the spinning room. And that is when I saw it. An envelope with my name on it. Inside the envelope, there were several folded up pieces of paper. I unfolded them very, very slowly. Dear Louisiana. Those were the words written at the top of the first page. It was a letter. Granny had written me a letter. She had never before written me a letter. And why in the world would she write me a letter? From the very first minute of my life that I could recall, Granny was with me and I was with her. Why would you write someone a letter when you were always and forever by their side? You wouldn't. Unless, of course, you intended not to be by their side anymore. I opened the palm tree curtains and sat down on the bed and stared out the window. I heard a rustling. Was it wings? Was Clarence the crow somewhere nearby? Had he come to save me? And then, my goodness, I realized that the rustling was the letter. My hand was trembling, and the pages of the letter were brushing up against each other. It was at this point that I understood that a tragedy was in the process of occurring. The sky outside the window of the Goodnight Sleep Tight was blue-black, and the curtains had palm trees instead of peaches. And Granny was gone, and I could feel the world whizzing past me. I once had a teacher named Mrs. McGregor who said that the world was turning very slowly on its axis. "It is moving infinitesimally," said Mrs. McGregor. Infinitesimally. She said the word very slowly. She stretched it out. Infinitesimally. So that you could hear the word infinite in the word when she said it. Mrs. McGregor always had dried spit in the corner of her mouth, but she was a very patient woman, and she was a truthful person. I liked Mrs. McGregor. I could not imagine her telling a lie. But here is the thing. It did not feel to me like the earth was moving infinitesimally. It felt like it was hurtling and jerking its way through a lonely darkness. To my way of thinking, you never knew when the earth was going to lurch and go somewhere entirely unexpected. There was nothing infinitesimal about it. I guess that is what the curse of sundering will do to you if it has been placed upon your head. It'll change how the earth itself moves. Oh, Raimy and Beverly. Oh, Archie and Buddy. Oh, Granny. I looked down at the letter in my trembling hands. I started to read. Ooh, that's the end of chapter 14. I didn't even expect that. We're on chapter 15, okay? So she's had this letter written to her by Granny. We don't know what it says yet, right? But Granny's not in the room anymore. I want you to right now pause the video, make a prediction. What do you think the letter is going to say? What did Granny do? Where did Granny go? What is she going to tell Louisiana? What are you thinking? This is the perfect time to make a prediction, okay? Pause the video and make a prediction on a piece of paper, sticky note, whatever you have, and then start it back up for chapter 15, okay? All right, chapter 15. Dear Louisiana, I read, you must be brave. Well, that first sentence made me mad. I was tired of being brave, just like I was tired of imposing and persevering. But I went on reading. I am going to tell you some things you must know that perhaps you should have known all along. I could feel my heart sink all the way down to my toes. I knew it. I knew that this was a letter of goodbye. I could tell. It was almost more than I could bear. But I had to bear it, didn't I? What choice did I have? I read on. I know that you know the story of the curse, but what I have never told you is that I saw my father that night, the night that he sawed my mother in half and walked away without putting her back together again. I was standing at the window of the hotel room. I was waiting for the two of them to return from the theater. I was up late, later than I should have been. I looked out the window of the hotel room, and I saw my father walking down the street toward the hotel. He was alone. His magician's cloak was floating out behind him, and I knew suddenly that he was going to tell me something important. But I didn't know what it was. I could not imagine, you see. I could not imagine. My father stopped and looked up at the window of the hotel. I waved at him. He looked at me, and then he turned and walked away without saying anything to me at all. And that moment, when my father left without telling me anything, is the moment when the curse truly began. That was the true moment of sundering. I closed my eyes. I could see small Granny, young Granny, standing at the window of the hotel room watching her father turn and walk away from her. It made my heart hurt. Poor Granny. At least she had all her teeth then. I read on. In these last few days, my father has appeared to me again and again. In Florida, I woke from a dream of him calling my name, speaking to me at last, and I knew then that we must go to Elf Ear immediately. That is why we left in such haste, Louisiana. I felt as if I was being summoned. And now, every time I close my eyes, I see him, my father. He appears out of the fog of my mind, and he calls my name, and his tone is ominous. It has become clear to me what I must do. I must go and confront the curse. I must do it alone. Was it a good idea for a toothless, feverish Granny to go and confront the curse by herself, without me? Well, I did not think so. But then, Granny wasn't soliciting my opinion, was she? I don't know what I will find in Elf Ear, Louisiana. I don't know what darkness awaits me, but I know that I must keep you safe from it. I wish that I could say goodbye to you in person, but I fear that you would insist on coming with me. Worse, I fear that I would not have the courage to go. And I must go. Oh, I do not want to leave you as my father left me. I want you to know that you are loved. I want to tell you the truth of who you are. Brace yourself, Louisiana. I looked up. I stared at the palm tree curtains and the dark world outside. I braced myself. Your parents were never known to me. What? I said out loud. I looked around room 102. What are you talking about, Granny? Of course my parents were known to you. My parents were the Flying Elefantes. They were famous far and wide. They were beautiful and talented. You have told me so many times. You and I are not related at all, Louisiana. We were tossed together by the winds of fate. Your parents were not the flying elefantes. They were not trapeze artists. I do not know who your parents were. That is a mystery I will not be able to unravel for you. Something large and dark had entered room 102 of the Goodnight Sleep Tight, and the large dark thing was sitting right on top of my chest. I couldn't breathe. If my parents were not the flying elefantes, then who was I? Read on, whispered the dark thing on my chest. Read on. After the curse befell me, I was sent to the county home. And after the county home, after I survived that miserable, miserable place, I entered the world as an adult. I moved through it as a solitary being, and I did not mind at all. I was glad to be alone. Yes, glad. For if you are alone, then you do not need to worry about the curse of sundering. I had a certain musical gift. When I was very young, my mother had taught me how to play the piano, and so that is what I did. I played the piano at churches. I gave recitals and lessons, and I worked at other jobs, small jobs, clerking, typing, cashiering. I got by. Listen, Louisiana, listen. Now we come to you. When I lived in New Orleans, I worked for a time at the Louisiana 5 and Dime. I sat up straight. The dark thing on my chest sat up straight too, but it did not go away from me. One evening, I walked out into the alley and I heard the whimper of a small animal. I knew what was coming. Read, the dark thing said. Read. I read. It was you, Louisiana. You were impossibly small. You were wrapped in a flowered blanket, and someone had put you on top of a pile of cardboard boxes and left you there. Understand, I had never wanted a child. I had no need to rescue anyone. But I picked you up, and you smiled at me. You smiled, Louisiana. I knew what it meant to be abandoned and left behind. I knew, too, what would happen if I notified the authorities. I knew that you would go to the orphanage, to a county home. I could not let that happen. So this is the truth. These are the facts. I picked you up, you smiled at me, I named you for where you were found, and caring for you has been the greatest joy of my life. I was named after a 5 and Dime? I was not an elefante? Someone had left me in an alley? I couldn't breathe. I would give anything to stay here with you, but the curse will not be denied. See how it is even now doing its dark work and pulling us apart? Please understand. I am old and I am very unwell and I fear there is little time left to me. My father will not stop calling my name. I must go and face the curse. I will try to return, but in case something prevents me, in case my time is too short, I want to tell you this. Do not come after me. The curse is too dangerous. I wish that I had time to see you to safety, but you are wily, resilient. You are not alone in the world. You will find a way. And please remember this. Someone put you down in that alley, but I picked you up. And perhaps what matters when all is said and done is not who puts us down, but who picks us up. I have loved you with the whole of myself, Louisiana. You will always and forever be loved by me. I have gone to Elf Ear to set us both free. Do not forget that you can sing. I love you. Alright, and that's the end of chapter 15. Now we're on 16. Wow. What a chapter, right? When I told you guys that I had read ahead, I read that chapter, and I was speechless. I did not know what to do. I didn't know why Granny would have left Louisiana like that. It shocked me. I was stressed. I didn't know how Louisiana was going to get through it. And so I started making some predictions. So I wish I had brought my journal out here with me, but I wrote down a lot of things that I was thinking that might happen at that time. And I want you to do the same thing. I want you to spend a little bit of time making predictions, but I'm also going to give you, kind of like I did last time, one line out of the book, and I'm going to ask you what that line means. And I want you to jot about that line, what you think that line means. And I also want you to make a few predictions for what's going to happen when we come back to the book after spring break, okay? Again, I'm so sorry that I took so long uploading these videos, but I hope you get to watch these at some point, if not today. Maybe you can watch them over spring break. You can rewatch and sort of reread all the chapters we've read so far. And I will see you on April 13th for chapter 16. Yeah, chapter 16. And we'll continue our reading then. I love you guys. I miss you all. I hope you have a wonderful spring break. Relax. Don't do any schoolwork. Go out on a walk. Get some fresh air, but stay safe most of all, most importantly. Okay? I will see you guys later. Bye, Belmont Bears.